Going to look at is a Burke-Letwin model. It's really a technique, and it's a bit of a bit like the problem solving we looked at in 316, because it's looking at the cause and effect and the various drivers that can influence the change and where they sit and which one's got the most influence. So it revolves around defining what the cause and effect is on relationships between different parts of the organization. And to do that, Burke-Letwin outlined 12 factors or dimensions, and we'll look at those a little bit more. And it helps us examine the relationships and what might change, what might be the impact of change on those relationships. So it doesn't actually, it's not like the others where it's actually helping us to plan the change. It's just helping us to do almost part of that assessment we talked about at the beginning. But it does give us a good bedrock to monitor things and realize where things are going wrong, perhaps in the change as we manage it. So it's better shown graphically. So let's have a look on the next slide at those 12 areas. So here we have a pictorial view of it. External factors being the first part and the first factor that he said, and the problem with those is we don't always have control over those, but we must consider them. He then outlined the others, which are all the parts of an organization that need to work together. So the organizational culture, there needs to be a mission and a strategy. What sort of leadership style? We've talked about that in our units before, about managing people, leading people. There needs to be a structure in the organization. There'll be practices that management follow, and there'll be systems that everyone follows. Under that, there'll be things such as tasks and skills, people's needs and values, the climate in the workplace, people's motivation, and the organizational and individual overall performance. And all of those are affected by different impacts from different areas, as we can see there with the lines. He also went on to say that into three key areas when we're talking about change. The first being transformational, long-term. Those things, the organization's culture, the mission and strategy, the leadership style, they don't change overnight. They weren't built overnight, and they are longer-term things that need to be transformed if they're going to have a change made to them. The next ones were the structure, the management practices, and the working systems. He said they were transactional. That those sort of bits can be changed over a medium term, and then they can be embedded as something new. And then finally said the short term ones, the individual sort of areas that were focused on individuals and factors, the skills, the motivation, the needs, the values, can all have a massive impact short term on change, and the change can start to impact on those straight away and really show a difference. So the whole thing was about considering the relationships and the impacts between them all. And as I said, it doesn't actually plan the change for you, but it can be a bit like a mind map and can be used to look at where the impact is, where things are going wrong. Is it the link between the work systems and how they're motivating staff now that we've changed them, etc., or is it that we haven't adapted the management practices, or we haven't changed the leadership style to go with the new change, and where that can be feeding into how the change is working or not working. And the final one we'll look at, McKinsey's 7 S's, similar in some respects to Burke-Letwin in that it's talking about relationships. And it's not just about change, but can be used. So it's about examining relationships in the organization, and the theory that these 7 elements that McKinsey identified all need to work together and be aligned to be mutually beneficial and bring the organization to its sort of peak, really. So therefore, we can look at it and start thinking when we're making changes, if something isn't functioning or isn't aligned, and we haven't aligned them up, then it's not going to be working. We can also use these when we're looking at the assessment that we talked about, an assessment of change, because we can look at these areas and assess whether they're ready, whether we need new systems or new skills, or the staff are on board, whether the shared values and goals will meet in line. So we'll break these down in a minute, but they're all interrelated and interlinked, and we can look at the wider aspects of these as we go into a change situation. So let's have a look at all the different areas. First is strategy. As we looked at in session 1 of this unit, is there an organizational strategy? Is it clear? The second is the structure, the way the organization is organized, who reports to who, And in that respect, is it clear and is it followed? The next one is systems. We're talking there about the daily activities, like we said, the organisational plan, the operational plan. Are there processes in place? Do staff follow them? Do people engage them? Do they get their job done? The next one he talked about was skills, the actual skills and competencies of staff. Are they current? Do they have the skills and that required? Talked about the style. What is the leadership style within the organisation? He talked about staff, all employees and their general capabilities and how they fit in. And he also talked about shared values, in the big one in the middle there. When they're developed, what are the core values? What is the evidence that people have got those shared visions and values and they buy into them? Kinsey model then went on to say that of those 7 values, some are hard. And what it meant by hard was that they're easy to define and identify. They're specific, like direct things, and they can be influenced. So that was the strategy, the structure, and the systems, and processes, procedures, written things. And then it went on to say the soft ones, which are more difficult to describe, less tangible and identify, and they're more influenced by those hard things and by the culture, individuals' preferences, and that doesn't make them any less important, but they're just harder to grasp. The soft things were the shared values, the individual stuff, the style of the leadership and how people are using it, and the individual skills and things. And those things were less easy to tie down sometimes and to monitor. So we can use it to analyze and compare things and see how they're working. And all of those models can be used to manage the change and try and support the change, because we are going to come up against barriers. We are going to see resistance, and we're going to have a look in a second about some of the common things that we're going to come across and how we might be able to use elements of those models to counteract those.